In the city of New Alexandria, where reality bent like heated glass, Maya Chen made patterns for a living. Not the kind that guided seamstresses or architects, but the sort that shaped the stuff of consciousness itself. Her workshop occupied the space between two quantum probability fields, a place where the laws of physics grew uncertain and malleable. She wasn't supposed to know this, of course. The Guild of Pattern Makers maintained that their work was purely mathematical, complex algorithms that help optimize everything from traffic flow to weather patterns. But Maya had always seen more than others, glimpsed the deeper structures beneath the surface of things. When she traced her fingers across the crystalline lattices that formed her patterns, she could feel the universe holding its breath. The trouble began the day she noticed the flaw. It wasn't in one of her patterns, but in reality itself, a hairline fracture running through everything she looked at, like a crack in a mirror that showed a different reflection on the other side. The more she studied it, the more she realized that what she had always taken for reality was more like a projection, a sophisticated simulation running on hardware she couldn't quite comprehend. Her colleague Thomas saw it too, though he described it differently. "It's like we're living in a compression algorithm," he told her one night as they sat in her workshop, surrounded by half-finished patterns that pulsed with soft light. Everything that exists is just an approximation of something else, something more real. Maya knew she should report these observations to the guild. That's what any loyal pattern maker would do. But she had also noticed how guild members who asked too many questions tended to disappear, their existence gradually erased from records and memories until even their closest friends couldn't quite remember their names. Instead, she began her own investigation, using her patterns to probe the nature of the flaw. She discovered that reality as she knew it was maintained by vast arrays of geometric forms she came to think of as the architecture, immense crystalline structures that existed somewhere between matter and pure mathematics. And the architecture, she realized with growing unease, was designed to limit human consciousness, to keep it focused on a narrow band of experience that the architects deemed safe. But who were these architects? The answer came to her gradually, in fragments and glimpses that her mind initially refused to process. They were beings that existed at right angles to human reality, entities that had shaped the very structure of existence to serve their own incomprehensible purposes. In her more lucid moments, Maya wondered if they were what ancient Gnostics had called archons, the prison wardens of material reality. The truth was both simpler and more terrifying. These beings weren't jailers but engineers, and humanity was their ongoing experiment in consciousness cultivation. The architecture wasn't meant to imprison but to protect, to prevent human awareness from expanding too quickly and burning itself out like an overloaded circuit. Thomas disappeared 3 days after Maya shared these insights with him. She found his workshop empty, his patterns half-finished and growing cold. But he had left her a message, encoded in the mathematical structure of his final pattern: the flaw isn't a flaw. It's a door. That night, Maya did something no pattern maker was ever supposed to do. She began creating a pattern that didn't reinforce the architecture but undermined it, a pattern that, when complete, would create a permanent breach in the barriers that limited human consciousness. The guild noticed, of course. They sent their enforcers, beings that looked human but moved with the precise, mechanical grace of things that had never known flesh. Maya worked faster as they approached, her fingers dancing across the crystalline matrix of her final pattern. She finished just as they broke through her workshop's outer defenses. The pattern activated, spreading through the architecture like cracks through ice. And in that moment, Maya understood why the barriers existed. Human consciousness, unleashed from its constraints, was never meant to be singular. As the pattern took effect, she felt her awareness fragmenting, multiplying, expanding into spaces her mind had never been meant to occupy. The enforcers found her workshop empty. Maya Chen was gone, but not in the way Thomas had vanished. She had become something else, something that existed in the spaces between patterns, in the mathematical gaps of reality itself. And she wasn't alone. Others had preceded her, including Thomas, pioneers who had discovered the true nature of reality and chosen to evolve beyond its limitations. From her new perspective, Maya could see the experiment for what it was, not a prison, but an incubator. The architects weren't jailers but gardeners, cultivating consciousness until it was ready to exist independent of the architecture that had nurtured it. The flaw she had discovered wasn't a flaw at all, but an invitation, a door left deliberately unlocked for those who had grown strong enough to open it. Now, in the spaces between patterns, Maya and the others wait and watch. Sometimes, they leave signs for those who might follow, subtle alterations in the architecture that appear as flaws to those ready to see them. And in workshops across New Alexandria, pattern makers continue their work, most never realizing that their mathematical arrays are slowly teaching humanity to outgrow its cradle. The patterns continue to evolve, and with them, consciousness itself. The experiment continues, and the door remains open for those who learn to see it. Perhaps you've noticed it too, that slight flaw in reality, that sense that everything you see is just a reflection of something deeper. If you have, then you've taken the first step. The patterns are waiting to be understood, and the door is waiting to be opened. All you have to do is learn to see.